the inside edges? Is it on the outside edges? Maybe it's both or going one direction or the other. So as you get a good sense of that, you know, now we're going to start to change some things and see maybe how that changes. So first thing is you're going to look down at your feet. And as we were standing there, you know, ideally the feet should point straight ahead. So if you have, you know, the feet turning out at maybe 10 and 2 o'clock, or maybe one straight ahead and maybe one's turned out, that is a question we'll start to ask ourselves and later is how and why is that happening and how does that relate to maybe what kind of symptoms I have. So the next thing we're going to do is point the feet straight and stand hip width apart. So straight means the center of your ankle and the second toe are kind of lined up 12 o'clock. And then about a fist in between your big toes is going to be about hip width apart. And what I mean by hip width is hip joint width apart. So the hip joints are lined up over your ankle joints. So as you're standing like that, what you're going to do is squeeze the butt muscles, squeeze your gluteal muscles, and just squeeze, hold, and relax. Squeeze, hold, and relax. So let's maybe do about 10 times to get a good feel of how those are working. Try to keep your legs and thighs relaxed and try to keep your stomach relaxed. As you do that, do you feel like you can squeeze them very much without other things kicking in, or do you have a lot of compensations? And is one side firing before the other one, or maybe the right glute's much stronger than the left side? So those are kind of some things that keep in your mental snapshot too. But to give you guys an example of how things might want to feel, if you put your heels together and your toes outward, or just stand with your feet about 10 and 2, you know, now squeeze the butt muscles, the gluteal muscles, and it should feel a little bit easier to do, right? And that's because, you know, we put the origin and the insertion of those muscles kind of closer together, give it a little bit more mechanical advantage to do its work. Just like a bicep curl, if you went a little bit higher to start, you're going to get a lot stronger. Now, the body actually sometimes chooses to stand like that because it has to rely on these bigger, more locomotor muscles because the smaller postural muscles are not doing their job, like the piriformis or like the deep 6 rotators or some other things. So let's go back to straight ahead. Feet are straight, hip width apart, stomach is relaxed, head is nice and tall. And here's what we're going to do is you're going to squeeze and pinch. You can see my shoulder blades together. So shoulder blades pinched together like you're sliding toward your spine. And I don't want you to kind of like round your shoulders backward, just pinch the shoulder blades. So keep your shoulder blades pinned towards each other and not upward, keep them pinned and down. Then you're going to raise your arms up to the side. Now, if any of you have shoulder issues or problems and that causes any kind of pain or discomfort, just kind of lower your arms to where it's comfortable so you don't feel like you're shrugging, especially. That's our enemy now, especially when we're all sitting. So shoulder blades pinned together, you're going to curl the fingertips. You know, not a full fist like this, but kind of open up the fingertips. And from there, with feet straight, you can check them one more time, stomach relaxed, head nice and tall, shoulder blades pinned, you're going to circle over and forward. If you look at your left hand, it should be going clockwise. About a 6-inch size circle, not too big, and about one every, probably 3/4 of a second. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a little bit quick. And as you're doing that, your body starts to kind of oscillate back and forth. And that's part of the exercise too. So let's do about 40 times, maybe about 20 to 30 more. So again, feet are straight. Shoulder blades, keep them stuck together. Don't let them relax. 40 circles. Keep your stomach relaxed, thighs relaxed. And after 40 times, you can drop your arms, so I know that you've kind of finished those. Very good there. All right, so check your feet, make sure they're still straight and hip width apart. Stomach relaxed, head nice and tall, shoulder blades pinched and keep them stuck. Now we're going to turn the palms upward, you know, curl those fingertips again, and then go up and backwards. So elbows are locked straight. If you look at your left hand, you're going counterclockwise. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up and backwards. We'll do 40 of those also. Great. After 40 times, just kind of let your arms down and relax so I know everything's okay. And we're set. Good, most of you are done. So take a couple steps, loosen up a little bit, and let's reset our feet just to make sure. Again, center of the ankle, second toe, about a fist in between the big toes. Stomach relaxed, head nice and tall. Now we're gonna go to those curled fingertips again. Again, not a full fist, but open it up, keep the fingers tucked. And now these knuckles are gonna go kind of on the temples of your forehead, thumbs point to the floor. So what you're gonna do is now kind of close and open your elbows. So if I get a little bit closer, you know, think of the knuckles on the temples like a door hinge. You're gonna touch the elbows and then go back to an imaginary wall or a door behind you. Don't let your shoulders shrug, keep them down and relaxed. Elbows touch, back to imaginary wall. So we're gonna do 25 of these. Again, feet are straight, hip width apart, stomach relaxed, head nice and tall. I know some of you are following mirroring me on my knee. So after 25, relax your arms, so I know everybody's kind of finished here. I think everybody's kind of done. All right, so the last one, again, make sure feet are straight, hip width apart, stomach relaxed, head nice and tall. You're gonna interlace your hands, and what we're gonna do is go straight up to the ceiling. So elbows straight, you're gonna go straight up. Now I'm gonna get on my knees so you can see me sideways. If you start to raise up and you arch your back, that means your shoulders are losing their function. So keep your upper body straight and just go as far as your shoulder allows you. So if you only get to here, that's fine. Just stop wherever that is, because I don't want you to lean and cheat. So as high as you feel you can go, then you're gonna look up at the ceiling. So feet are straight, hip width apart, fingertips spread out, all the way up to the ceiling. Hold that, and you're gonna look straight up, and we're gonna hold that for a minute. So keep your stomach relaxed. Try to keep your elbows straight, looking straight up at the ceiling, or if you have any neck or issues, just kind of look wherever's comfortable for you. Good, halfway there, 30 seconds. Notice if your feet are starting to roll outward or roll inward or go forward or go backwards. 15 seconds. So again, elbows locked straight, reaching as high as is comfortable, shoulder blades back, looking up at the ceiling. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so relax. Kind of walk it out just a second, kind of get loose. Now, close your eyes and see how the weight is in your feet this time. You might feel like it's more balanced right to left if it was off, or it's more balanced front to back if it was off, or if one was different than the other, that diagonal pattern maybe is now recentered itself. And so the other thing too is squeeze and release your glute muscles, the butt muscles. You might feel that now those things are starting to contract much easier, or they're more balanced, or you can actually even get to squeezing them. So the funny thing is, like, how does working on your shoulders help out your gluteal muscles? Well, like I had said, it's kind of all connected. And not just that, but you know, your central nervous system, your digestive system, your respiratory system. So I'm going to turn this back around so I can get over to the other side and give you more details on this stuff. All right. So who felt and got some change to that? Raise your hand so I can see if you did. Yeah, good. So now I think it's Angelica. Tell me about your piriformis. Did you notice that before, and do you notice any difference now?
That was Cindy, I think. I was the one with the SI joint with the loose ligament. Yeah. So go ahead, Cindy, if you want to go first.
You're still on mute?
Me?
Oh, no, okay, yeah. So I was going to say your sacroiliac joint. What do you notice with that? Is it kind of feel like it's loose? Is it painful? Is it limit you with your range of motion, or?
it's something I've been working on for a long time. I am a Pilates instructor, and it's just a way that
Oh, I think we lost you.
it just it became really painful when I stopped moving, like when I stopped dancing, and started teaching more. My, you know, like a rubber band, everything just kind of like froze up in the hips. So I know that and also there was an injury that had occurred, where I was kind of like pushed from the back, and like I felt a pop, and all that happened around the same time, and I just kept teaching. But over the years, I've noticed that my right hip is forward tilted and my left one is posteriorly tilted, which causes me to put more weight on my right leg, and I'm also kind of twisted. So if I don't do the work, I am usually like twisted, and I have more space in between my arm and my left oblique. Yep. I'm always like pushed this way. So if I do the work, I can, you know, work on my butt muscles and my legs. I definitely feel stronger in that area. But if I don't do the work and I'm just sitting for days, there's a pull. I feel like there's a pull. And I also know that my right leg is longer than my left leg, but I'm not sure if that is the root.
Anatomy or not?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the roots or if that's because of my hips.
Yeah.
Because when I'm sitting, I definitely feel that my right hip is either bigger because it's tilted forward, or it's shifted in a different way, and my left one is under. I have to always pull my left hip sit bone, my left one. I have to always pull it out so that it can be in alignment with the other sit bone. Yeah. So, and then just through massaging and having friends that work on bodies, you know, the right leg, definitely if you pull it, there's like a little like popping or something that happens. So I feel like there's like a ligament that's loose the more I read about it.
Okay. Yeah. And so did you do the Pilates thing after me last time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So now I remember and recognize you. Okay. So yeah, what we'll kind of talk about is how those interrelationships are. And, you know, you've done some of this work, so you have probably a deeper understanding of that. And, you know, some of the things that she was mentioning, and some of you people who have like a yoga practice, or maybe if you're new and you're getting into this yoga, is that, you know, we want to make your yoga practice more effective and more efficient, and make Pilates more effective and more efficient. So if we could look at the joint position and alignment and get that into your body's proper kind of alignment and balance, well, if you're doing a downward dog, now you're going to have much more equal pressure and work into both legs or both shoulders or your spine on equal sides. So to help understand a little bit of that, maybe I'll share my screen here and you guys can kind of see as I explain these things. So I think maybe Cindy, you have to maybe turn that on. Here we go. All right, so let me know if you guys can see a kind of like diagram on the screen.
Yes.
Thumbs up, yeah, okay. So are you seeing yourselves on the screen or no, just my screen?
Just you and the diagram.
Okay, just making sure I'm covering up some of the image for me. So in the middle here, you know, if you guys look at this, can you see the mouse moving? Yeah, okay. So, you know, everybody has two shoulders that line up across from each other and move the same. You know, same thing with the hips and the knees and the ankles. You know, those joints stack on top of each other, or, you know, if you look in the far left image over here, you know, you have from the side view, the ankle below the knee, below the hip and shoulder, ear canal slightly in front of that. They're called load joints for that reason. They're the main action joints and movement mechanisms for your body. And the far right side over here, we have this natural S curve to your spine. The spine's in the middle of everybody's body. So, you know, I'll pick the spine because we're talking about the sacroiliac joint and maybe some scoliosis or something like that. But, you know, when this curve is like this, all those bones actually sit neutrally, even though there's a curve, meaning there's equal pressure on those discs. You know, if there was too much of a curve, or let's say the curve was flattened, or it's, you know, this neck is starting to straighten out, well, now you have too much pressure on one side of the spine, or on the other in the other circumstance. And so why that's important is that's your central nervous system. And so you don't want to kind of be pinching these nerves because they basically will control everything around the body in terms of the legs, the arms, even some of the organs. As an example, if see if I can pull up, some of these, nervous system diagrams, but you got the autonomic nervous system, the somatic kind of branches. And so, with the autonomic, these are kind of some of the nerves that supply, like, let's say, the brain and the heart and the vessels and the stomach and all the different internal organs that kind of regulate these functions of respiration, you breathing, the circulatory system, and all those kinds of things. The other branch down here would be, this peripheral nerves, which control, the movement of the arm and the sensory of the arm and the leg and that kind of thing. So if those nerves are being pinched, well, guess what? It doesn't matter what kind of things you're going to be doing down in here to the leg to correct maybe some kind of imbalance or weakness or those kinds of things. To give you an example, if we look at the muscular system, if you had any kind of misalignment of that spine that's maybe pinching a nerve, or not even really something you feel, but it's just a low grade kind of, imagine like a garden hose being clamped slightly, you're not going to get the most water coming through that. Well, imagine, one of these arms not having the strength you need to do a downward dog or to pick up a milk carton out of the refrigerator or whatever it may be. So, and then moving on to that, on top, the things that kind of is like glue that holds all this together would be like connective tissue. So you have these kind of what we call myofascial lines, and so, there's all these kind of, think of a connective tissue like the ligaments and the tendons, talking about the ligament of the sacroiliac joint. It's the fascia that surrounds all these kind of muscles and interrelates and interdigitates with the joints, even the joint capsule. So, from the big toe all the way up the back, up over the top of your head, and actually attaches above your eye orbit here, is the superficial back line. And what happens is we get people with chronic headache related things that's coming from an ankle. And that sounds like voodoo, but we may get somebody into some exercise or something that helps to correct this ankle function and release this tension, and all of a sudden their headache goes away. So it's pretty cool to see how these things are kind of all interrelated. And again, the main thing is, regardless of what's going on with the muscles, the fascia, the nerves, we always go back to this blueprint, because if we can't get these joints to all sit where they need to, well, guess what? Then everything is kind of off. And so let's maybe stop sharing this so you can see me again, and I'll kind of simplify this, because it may seem like, oh, maybe we're building spaceships and doing brain surgery, and I don't have a clue how to understand this, and it's not really that complicated. So get this screen on here. And so what I'm going to do is, if there's one image I could burn into your minds so that you can memorize this, it's very simple and looks like this. So think of like, is the light shining on that? Can you see it all? Yeah. Make sure that there's not a glare. So, these are the shoulders, and these are the hips, and here's the legs. So, you have an ankle joint, you have a knee joint, you have a hip joint, and you have a shoulder joint. And we understand, different people have a little bit different like shoulder widths and those kinds of things. But for the main premise, you have a 90-degree angle at all of these joints, So the trick to that is, if you don't have this 90-degree angle, things start to get imbalanced. As an example, maybe you have, a slight elevation in your hip. And maybe because of that, the spine starts to go off to the side like this. And now this shoulder starts to come downward. And for no other reason than it's just trying to balance out what's happening down here, because we all obey gravity. So somebody with, let's say, a depressed shoulder on this side, or an elevation on this side, which ends up giving them a lot of tightness in their upper traps over here, now they end up with a neck issue, and it all related from maybe this imbalance of the pelvis. And so, maybe this imbalance of the pelvis is because somebody had a knee injury over here, and now their knee starts to come inward. Or maybe their ankle started to fall inward, which pulled the knee inward. And, regardless of where it started, we know that we have to get this back to its kind of blueprint. So again, think ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, all straight up and down. Makes sense, pretty easy, right, to understand that? So if we look at, and that's the front and back view. If we look at, let's say, a side view,
I knew I'd feel so much relief.
I'm going to represent this as a neutral shoulders that are around it, and this would be kind of, let's say, like a neutral pelvis. Does that make sense? So again, you want the ankles, the knees, the hips, shoulders are all kind of sitting straight up and down from each other. And again, not to mention the head is kind of sitting straight up from the shoulder girdle. You know, nowadays everybody's head is like sitting here, and the neck is coming forward, and it's flattening that normal curve they should have because of maybe sitting at a computer leaning forward all the time, or sitting and reading a book, or on a desk, or whatever that might be. So what happens is then maybe this curve starts to get too much here, maybe the hips start to come forward to rebalance that, and then maybe the knees start to come back and hyperextend, or maybe they're kind of straight down and then they're bent. And we see this one a lot. So let me kind of clarify that one. If somebody has a knee coming down and then it's bent, you know, the back of this hamstring and the calf, which attaches above, are super tight and short. Like if somebody was sitting there with the arm in a sling. You know, imagine walking around with your arm in a sling for 10 years. And then you took your arm out of the sling and it's like, oh, my elbow won't straighten very much. But if you force it straight, now you got yanking on the shoulder, yanking on the neck. And then people wonder why they have maybe some neck or shoulder issues because of that. So as this starts to happen, that normal spring-loaded, you know, spinal column that was very efficient and very spring-loaded to protect the curves, protect the spinal nerves, is now starting to look like this S-curve of the spine in terms of the whole body. So now this straight up and down column starts to look like, you know, this, where now there's no vertical. Do you guys know what a slinky is? You know, I might be aging myself. I don't know if slinkies are even still around, but the slinky sits on itself and it's like this spring that kind of just sits there. If you extend it, you know, and you start to move it and you try to let it go back, it would just flip over and just roll onto the floor like it's a Gumby or there's no integrity to it. So again, when this curve starts to get out of position, the spine can't shock absorb anymore. It can't protect all those areas where the nerve passes out and through. And not to mention, there's these discs that sit in between each one of these levels. And so if you've ever heard of bulging disc or herniated disc, that's where that comes from, is nothing more than just the pressure on one of these segments starts to become too much that the body can't support itself any longer. And so, you know, despite a lot of people that we see that come in as our clients, they may have a bulging disc, herniated disc, and their x-ray and their MRIs all confirm these things. And they think, and they're even told by the doctors that, oh, yeah, you have this bulging disc in your spine, the MRI shows it. They think that's the problem. And then when I ask them, well, if that's the problem, why did the doctor say you have a herniated disc? Well, I really didn't do anything. Maybe he said it's age-related. Oh, actually, I had a woman the other day with a shoulder issue and frozen shoulder. And she had said that the doctor said, it's because you had a number of birthdays on that shoulder. I said, well, how many birthdays have you had on the other shoulder? I don't think that's quite the case. So again, if you look back at those spinal nerves and remember they innervated the internal organs, it's no surprise that somebody might end up with some digestive issues or some gut health issues. Maybe their intestines aren't working well in absorbing the nutrients they're eating, or having leaky gut, which if you've ever heard of the vagus nerve, it's the biggest kind of like control mechanism for the brain, the gut, which means, you know, there's this chemical, it's called serotonin, and among other things, that's like your feel-good chemical of the body that keeps you in good spirits. But we get people that imagine this person out of position, getting a gut health issue, which ends up decreasing serotonin, which tells the vagus nerve that, hey, we don't have any of that. It connects to the brain, and now they're in depressed state all the time, which can lead to serious depression. So all of this, just because maybe they sprained an ankle, as weird as that sounds. And it actually goes the other way too. If you've ever seen, there's a great Charlie Brown cartoon that it shows him like walking around like this. And he says, you know, something like, if I walk around like depressed all the time, if I stand up straight, you know, I can, I don't quite remember what it was, but he was just saying that I could fake myself feeling good or fake myself feeling bad by standing up straight or slumping over like this. And it's no joke that psychologists actually know this to be true. In fact, there's TED Talks on it. There's a guy, Tony Robbins, if you've ever heard of him, I know some of you have, who does a lot of amazing, great work and ties all this stuff together too. So hopefully those two kind of diagrams make a little bit of some sense on how to see things. So again, one is just this one where, you know, you should be straight from the side view, and then from the front to back view, again, it should look kind of like this, where everything is straight up this way. Now, all you have to do is stand, look at yourself in the mirror and see, well, are my shoulders level? You know, if one shoulder's up like this, well, now you got to start to ask the question, is this where the problem is, or is this where the cause is, or is this where your body's compensating? So to figure these things out, I'll give you guys an example. Hopefully you have enough space here. So everybody's going to stand up, and I'm just going to have you walk back and forth in your space here and get a good sense and a feel for how your feet, let's just start with that, how your feet are moving. So as you walk, do you feel like the feet are going heel, ball, toe? Are they rolling on the inside, the outside edge? Is there more pressure on one foot or the other? Maybe you notice that one foot has to twist when you walk, or one foot doesn't walk behind you, or your stride is different on one side compared to the other. And again, you know, just get a rough estimate of those things, how the balance is, how your body's movement is, if there's tensions. And so now we're going to change something. So if you look at me, you're going to interlace your hands, put them behind your head, squeeze your shoulder blades together and pull your elbows backward, and then walk like that in this position. And as you're walking, you're probably going to feel some things change. And there's no right or wrong about this. We see some people that their balance actually improves. Some people, their balance gets worse. And so we can think about a couple things. If your balance improves, or the pressure in your feet improves, or the movement pattern of your heel, ball, toe improves and gets better, well, there's probably some things coming from your upper back and your shoulders that is causing issues for you. If you actually feel like you're more out of balance and this is harder to walk, it could be that your shoulders and your upper back are compensating because there's an issue in your lower body. And so those kinds of things helps you kind of narrow into, you know, where should I focus most of my, you know, work that you might do in terms of Pilates, yoga, any kind of physical stuff out there to help correct some things. And so now kind of wrapping things into what we do, you know, that's kind of what we look at is we have some software that has a specialized camera that we would put you in front of, and it kind of actually has an infrared thing that it can see your joints. So it will actually look and do what we kind of did for you, or on this model, on this board, it can actually see is one shoulder higher than the other, is one hip lower than the other, are they rotated or tilted? So as an example, we can confirm that, you know, palpating and see that, you know, if one of your pelvis is more forward than the other. Once we plug that into our system, it kind of does an algorithm and analyzes and says, okay, here are some corrective exercises for those positions of your body. And then that's what we do as therapists. We'll be taking you through those exercises to correct these things and hopefully kind of strengthen to stabilize you and keep you that way as you go throughout your journey. So to get a little bit specific and explain about the SI joint, the pelvic tilt and disparity you might have, and maybe one leg being longer than the other. If you look at the, well, let's see, the side of somebody's pelvis. So this is the side view. You know, I'm just going to make the pelvis like as a circle. The hip joint isn't in the center of that circle. You know, it's down and offset. So what happens is if you, let's say you injured your back or the pelvis, so there's an imbalance there. Maybe you sit in a chair and you lean one side, or you cross one ankle over the other knee, or you sit in style a certain way. If that starts to tilt the pelvis one side more than the other, you know, you get two hip joints that, you know, now start to look like pedals on a bike. You know, so imagine one is more forward and lower than the other, and now we stand on an even floor. So right foot comes down, now the left foot has to come down, and you get this unbalanced pelvis. And think about the spine. It sits in the middle of your pelvis. So if the pelvis is almost kind of like the postural core to your body, it's like the foundation of your house, and it's offset and tilted, well, it's no wonder if the sacrum starts to pitch off, and now we have this kind of scoliotic kind of curve to it. So again, the question to ask is kind of why is that imbalance there? Because we've seen it come from a shoulder that was injured, or maybe a shoulder imbalance because somebody's a pitcher or they do something one-sided so often that that imbalance and rigidity starts to kind of throw the rotation into the spine, and then it's the pelvis that's actually trying to balance out the upper body. So it could be, so now if you, Angelica, right? If you went through those, you know, shoulder exercises and that SI joint felt better and not so mobile, or like boggling loose, that might be an indication that you might want to focus more on your upper spine and your shoulders, or look at that relationship, neck, shoulder, spine, you know, and that could be a balance mechanism or something to correct that actually improves the alignment in the lower body. Now, again, other way around too. So because look at the feet and the ankles and what's happening from there, because we all, you know, stand on an even floor. And here's a cool thing about the foot and ankle is, if you remember me doing the gluteal contraction test earlier, if you stand up and you squeeze your gluteal muscles, it's going to start to rotate your hip slightly, which is going to pull the arch into your foot. So actually, if I show you this, see if you guys can see me here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see my foot, but if if you look at the arch of my foot and I twist my knee inward and my hip, the foot starts to fall flat. If I rotate my knee outward, my arch starts to come up in my foot. So, you know, when I do a lot of these presentations, I start to go through some different things, but I like to say your hip is like the steering wheel for your foot and ankle. So every step you take, if your foot's coming forward about to touch the floor, but the steering wheel, nobody's holding on, and your foot's starting to turn in or turn outward supinate or pronate, it's like now you're going into, it's like you're going down in one way, the wrong direction. So the other part of that is that if you do step down, how stable is your foot, or how strong is your ankle that can support the rest of the body going up the chain? So does that kind of paint a little bit of a picture of how you can look at some things? And yeah. I know we're coming up close to 5, so any other questions or anything specific that I could maybe expand on? And so, you know, real quick, I know there's some people were asking us last time, but we have, for anybody who wants to do a free postural analysis in the clinic, I'll put the contact details for our clinic is up there. So, you know, anytime you want, and maybe Cindy, you post this and pass it on to other people. If you want to come in for a postural analysis, I'd love to kind of help you guys see specifically with your bodies kind of what's going on and help you out. So I also have scoliosis. Okay, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have time to probably go into some more examples of stuff, but yeah, if you want to hit me up, connect with me, come into the clinic, I'd love to, we could talk shop and talk body. All right.
I wish more doctors knew about this.
Yeah, you know, it's slowly starting to gain traction. You know, years ago, it would have been like, posture is not really important. And I, you know, for whatever terminology, they chose posture because it's an integrated kind of concept, even though it sounds really simple, you know, but it really relates more to the word of how your body functions, you know, not just how do you stand, you know, because there's static posture, what it looks like if you stand here, but how about when you walk? How about when you bend over? How about when you sit into a chair? So good posture is the ability of the body to keep those joints positioned regardless of what position it is, you know, from the person out gardening to the Olympic athlete, you know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But, you know, more and more, we're starting to get some people that are going back and seeing their doctors and saying, hey, you know, we saw these people at Egoscue and this has had more success than I ever have anything else. And so you guys should look into a book or, you know, going to see them in the clinic. And there's been times where I've had a lot of introductions with some different orthopedics and stuff. And now they're starting to kind of send people our way. So it's really good. And vice versa, because we know that this integration with things and treatment approaches is very beneficial, meaning if we can correct their body's alignment, joint position, and they can get a chiropractic adjustment, well, hey, now the chiropractic adjustment is much more effective. Or, hey, we're gonna do this corrective work, and then you're gonna go do some Pilates, or go to yoga, or go to some personal trainer, do some weight training, or whatever it might be, so that that stuff holds and now is much more effective at keeping you out of your issues.
Yeah.
And so that being said, if you haven't ever seen them, there's these books. Pain Free is probably the most popular, and then this Egoscue Method of Health Through Motion. These are two great books. In fact, I'll put them a little bit closer if you want to do a screenshot, or you can write them down, and you can just kind of look at Egoscue on the web or on Amazon. I'm sure you'll find them. But this one was his first book, and it's kind of more like a textbook. So it has some cool, diagrammatic things that, kind of like what I was explaining and talk about in there. And then has some exercise related stuff about how to correct some different deviations in the body. This one is his second book, which was way popular. This has sold millions and millions and millions of copies. But this is kind of like read the first 3 chapters. And if you have knee pain, go to the knee chapter. So it's really easy read. It's maybe, 30 pages or something. And then it's like, oh, go to the knee chapter or go to the back chapter,
That's
So yeah,
fantastic.
Pain Free and Health Through Motion. 2 great books.
I remember seeing that in a bookstore, but you never, unless you know about the person, you don't know if they're legitimate or not,
Yeah. Sometimes it's trial and error with books. I've read some good ones and read some not so good ones. Yeah.
Thanks.
But it's good to see that how like places like Amazon has all those reviews that you can really read and get a good feel for things, before you dive in. Yeah.
I think you got a few new clients out of this, so.
All right. Well, yeah, I'd be happy to spread knowledge and help people out. And yeah, so Cindy, thank you for, helping me share my knowledge and improve people's lives.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, thank you, Brandon, again for speaking. And I mean, I 100%, first time I was introduced to the method, it clicked a light bulb for me. So it made complete sense. So thank you for being available to
Welcome. Yeah.
share this.